Hi, my name is Deanna Byrne, and I have a life coaching practice as well as I am the creator of the international podcast called Meditate with Deanna. This is my new video blog called Chasing Sunsets. I have a blog on my website, and everybody is looking for video footage now, so I decided to convert some of those blog posts into short videos for my YouTube channel. It's been quite a while since I have done a blog post. It's a shame, really, because I'd forgotten how incredibly healing that was for me. I got caught in that 34-second TikTok trap of messages that seems to be where the world is right now. But the reality is that right now is not working for me. Blogging is similar to journaling, can be very healing for the soul. It allows you to get the noise out of your head and to move forward in your journey. I've been really struggling the last few months to find my way, to discover the who I am part of the stage of my life. One minute you think you have it all figured out, and the next, well, you don't. You can spend hours with negative self-talk and spend even more hours trying to define your purpose, when in reality, embracing that deep vulnerability is so needed at times, and that is your purpose. Dating after loss has been one of the biggest emotional lessons for me. You never take into consideration in your mid-50s that you would be starting over again, trying to not only discover who you are today, but also trying to find your way with another person, their emotions, needs, expectations, their own vulnerabilities. What a hell of a ride that is. The voices in your head constantly scream, run, but the softer voice is always quietly saying, just breathe. You got this. It is like you're having this constant voice war within your own mind, and at times it feels like you're literally losing your mind. I hear people say things like, dating in 2022 all the time, it's insanity. No, the year has nothing to do with it. Dating has always been hard. It just gets harder as we get older because we're tired and we have expectations that at times can be so completely unrealistic. Many of us have had long-term relationships, so we have this expectation that it should be just like that. Forgetting that took years to develop with another person. Defining your expectations, goals, and needs in another relationship is not something that just rolls into a new one like a red carpet. It simply does not. You move forward behind this facade, only giving little pieces of yourself so that they never fully see you. Because you see, if you allow them to see you fully, you lose that power. The one that you created in your own mind, because you're certain if you allow anyone else in, they will take away your sense of wonder, your internal beat, and your heart. So you move forward, leaving little breadcrumbs, just enough to keep them there. Discovering yourself through the process of grief is exhausting. You literally spend most of your adult life being that person for someone else, your kids, your spouse. Somewhere in all of that, we lose ourselves and our own internal light gets very dim. You never, through all of those years, defined your own passion, and your purpose was to be a mother, partner, sister, daughter, wife, and in my case, also a caregiver. I had people say to me, "Oh, I know you better than you know yourself." And that is a wonderful thought. However, it really never mattered how close we were. I never allowed anyone in that deep. No one ever really fully saw me. I only allowed them in to see what I wanted them to see. Many times being a chameleon to adapt to situations. Many times only allowing the first couple of chapters to be read in my story. To literally mimic all of my surroundings. So few people could see through this. I was simply called adaptable. The reality is that it was one of the biggest emotional cons ever. My late husband, though, was able to peel away those layers and expose my deepest vulnerabilities. He was one of the very few who has even seen me at my most open. He was able to pull me back, build me up, and simply just be there with no expectation or requirement. Just be. My whole life has been one of risk-taking and literally pushing life to its absolute limits. Always chasing, always building, and always dreaming. And I can attest that you suddenly wake up one day and decide it's time for peace. But is that because you were just emotionally tired? And once you're rested, you'll dive right back into what you were literally running and chasing, or are you really ready for peace? Such an intense question. I've always called myself a gypsy soul, but it really wasn't until recently that I started researching the term gypsy soul. I started doing this to fully understand this mindset within my own coaching practice. What I didn't realize was for it to fully open my thinking and understanding the way that I've lived my whole life. It was always one of risk, one of dreaming, one of running so fast forward that I was never able to sit within the present and embrace it. And it wasn't until my husband suddenly died in January 2020 and the subsequent lockdown of our whole world because of the pandemic that I was forced in that moment to sit within the present. What a dark and crazy ride that was. Going through deep grief and isolation in an environment that was not a healthy one for me was one of the most challenging and difficult things that I've ever had to work through in my whole life. I'm a firm believer that every situation, whether it be negative or positive, holds a lesson for us to take from it. My lesson from all of that was allowing me to fully understand the unhealthy generational trauma that I had been through my whole life, and how I continued to push forward in my own life, and how it was extremely unhealthy. I was immediately a small child in that moment, in an unknown and terrifying environment. Being forced to sit within that environment allowed all of those emotions and trauma to come to the surface. I didn't realize how effective, though, that had been for me until I started seeing a professional in January of this year to help me with some of the trauma work for grief that was unresolved for me. All of this has allowed me to really see a lot of what my whole life has been. It was hard, it was messy, it was exhausting, and it was so worth it. But how does that change today? How do you move forward from a place of understanding, wisdom, and growing to allow someone else into your life? How do you allow yourself to be vulnerable? How do you find the energy from within when you're still growing yourself? Then to place that energy into building something new with a completely different person. How do you allow your boundaries, which are very rigid and unhealthy, to open and allow someone else in? How do you determine that that is the right person for you? At the age of 55, these were questions I never thought I would ever have to ask myself. This was a time of my life where I felt I would be winding down my work career and preparing to enjoy retirement with my husband. Those are the kinds of dreams that little girls have when they're young. The perfect Prince Charming, the successful life, the wonderful experiences. And then as you grow older, you're able to simply look deep within the eyes of the person who you love unconditionally. And that person is the one that you're supposed to be spending the rest of your life with. Then one day you wake up and you realize that yesterday took all that away from you. How does one move forward from that? And then one day you meet someone. This person who starts as someone who is great to have conversations with, and someone who allows you to laugh again, and someone who gives you a sense of romance, connection, friendship, and understanding. And then one day you get scared because that one text changed everything. Kiss a Girl by Keith Urban. Read the lyrics. Because this person opened your heart, which is something that you had so tightly locked. And you had decided after feeling such intense grief that you would never allow anyone to become that close to you again. That you would never define who you are again as sharing space within your world with another person. That you would never again be a piece of someone else. That you had made this emotional decision to become a warrior, this powerful woman, this awoken woman, this person who wanted no one else in their life. And then one day she woke up and realized she did. Then that realization became a quest, a hunger, and an acquisition. The right formula, the right person, and the right moment. The most wonderful thing about relationships in our 50s is by choosing to have one that simply starts with a friendship, someone to start talking with, someone to laugh with, someone where you have absolutely no expectations about your future with. Simply just someone who you can be yourself with. But then again, one day you wake up and you get scared. You get scared because you had let this person in. You have allowed vulnerable pieces of you to be exposed to the elements of that life, to the elements of another person's interpretation of you, and to the world around you as a whole. You have kept those vulnerable pieces so tucked in, so deeply within, because you didn't want anyone to ever use those against you. Because the unfortunate part of life is, those that you trust in friendship and in life will. Dating after death is something that requires patience, understanding, faith, commitment, vulnerability, passion, trust, and needing to use that amazing superpower within your own mind to change the negative self-talk that attacks your brain every single day. It is something that pulls pieces of you to the surface that you really didn't think would ever come again. It's a connection with another person, another human being who, like yourself, has also been in a long-term relationship. So you're both trying to navigate these difficult emotional waters together. Unfortunately, there are times where you will see the perfect storm. It is finding the strength within to navigate through that storm, because somewhere in the depths of your soul, you know this is good for you, and you know this is good for him. It is finding the way to make it good for each other at exactly the same time. During the journey of becoming a widow, people come and go from your life. They are there for a reason, and at times that reason is so very unclear. But many times the reason is so very clear. And you are so incredibly grateful that the universe continues to guide you and to take care of you, even in those moments where you have very little trust in what the universe was providing for you. There are times at some point where you will look back and you will have an aha moment, because then it all makes sense. Defining who you are as a woman after the loss of your husband is not something that ever comes with an instruction manual. There are so many times that you fall. There are so many times that you get back up. And there are so many times that you just lie there in the pit of your own grief, trying to breathe. It's those moments that are so incredibly exhausting. And grief has no timeline. It is a very individual process. And it changes for people based on how much of yourself you gave away in that relationship. And I don't mean that in a negative or abusive way. What I mean is, in many relationships, we connect and combine as one. And when we do that, a piece of that intricate puzzle of life is taken away. You literally have no idea who the hell you are anymore. You go back to who you were maybe in your early 20s as an example, and then you realize she doesn't really work for you anymore. Then you go back to who you were as a young mother and realize, well, she doesn't really work for you either. And then you look at who you became after your husband took his last breath and realize there were pieces of you in her, but many of them were very broken. You also realize that pieces of her died with him. It is a process that should not be ever taken lightly or criticized or judged. It is a deep vulnerability that should be accepted, honored, and nourished, and never, ever judged. It is a time where you are learning to integrate your shadow side, which many times we bury deep within our psyche growing up. It is a time where you are learning all the aspects of who you are, what you want and what makes you feel complete, and how you see the rest of your life. If anyone doesn't think that is not a hell of a lot of shit to deal with, I truly hope you never have to. I've lost friends. I've lost acquaintances. I've lost family. I've lost so very much through this process, but I have no regrets. Waking up to fully understanding that what is important at this stage in my life is to nourish my soul, is to align myself with those who match my vision, my energy, and my peace, is to fully understand that however many days I have left here in this body, I choose to make them the best and most fulfilling as I possibly can. Will it be easy? Will there be speed bumps? Will I get hurt? Absolutely. Will I stop trying? Never. I choose to wake up every single day and have a breath of gratitude. In doing so, I'm being grateful for the fact that I simply can. While the world around me tends to be spinning in chaos, I continue to choose to walk with grace. I choose to limit what energies I allow within my space. I choose to allow only people who align with my heart and my soul in my space. I also choose to no longer keep relationships and friendships out of obligation. Am I going to continue to make mistakes? I can say with absolute certainty that I will. Will I allow those mistakes to define me? I can also say with absolute certainty that I won't. Will I be able to find someone who loves me for my gypsy soul, who accepts me for all that I am and all that I bring to the table? I have faith that all of the stars will align and trust that those brought into my path are all here for a reason. If you have lost a partner and are feeling some of these things, please step back for a moment and honor yourself, because you are a warrior. You are strong and you will get through this. I am not saying it's going to be easy, but you will. I promise.